This conference will now be recorded.
It's TalkLP podcast time. We are so excited to brighten your day, hopefully. Dave Thompson, what's going on, co-host TalkLP?
I got a haircut and you didn't even mention, you didn't even say anything.
It still looks swoopy, which is good. I like the swoop.
You can see my ears. You can see my ears again. And on my marketing budget over here, I drew my own little backdrop because I felt I was jealous of what you got going on.
You need to do it a couple more times for it to look legit.
At least I spelled it right.
So Lisa's getting bored with this boring banter. Lisa Mitchell, welcome back to TalkLP, our other behavior reading expert. We have access to one, but he doesn't like to talk about it. So we are so glad to have you back, especially in this crazy time. We were just talking about people and why they suck so much. But we're here to brighten your day. But we could talk about that a long time, I think, Lisa. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me back again. And mentioning that people suck right now, because they kind of do. So I'm glad we just
we covered that.
Jump off of that right from the beginning.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about you, your company, what you do. I want people to know that you are a resource for them. You've certainly been an awesome guest for us, but tell us a little bit about you, what you're doing now, where people can find more information until we jump into this topic.
Yeah, sure, thanks. I am the founder of Power Body Language, and it's a communications consulting firm. I focus on executive communications, helping people really feel good about how they're showing up in the room or now on the screen, primarily since we're meeting virtually that way. All sorts of tips and tricks about how to use the tools you already have around making good first impressions, gaining trust, and also figuring out what's going on with other people, which is, I think, really relevant right now as far as decoding their body language and figuring out maybe what they're not saying to you, but still communicating, and just being overall more clued in and confident in whatever you're walking into or logging into in your current environment.
So I'm cutting Amber. I'm going to cut Amber off because she always does this to me. So once in a while, I mean, since men never cut women off when they're talking, I thought maybe
here we go.
Oh, on the opposite side, first of all, if you want to talk body language expertise, Lisa is well above me in that category, as you mentioned that. But I've seen, Lisa, your face on video like crazy the last several months and several weeks. I am sick of looking. No, it's good. I'm sick of looking at myself. So I'm curious, there's a lot of people out there doing either as attending or hosting training sessions or whatever else on video, and I am exhausted afterwards. Any thoughts on how to help that?
Well, I think just acknowledging that it is tedious, and I think we feel like because it's remote, it's less active participation when it's actually the exact opposite. We feel in the spotlight, we feel like even in a Brady Bunch kind of grid display, you never know who's looking at you when, so you're always feeling like you have to self-manage. We're way less animated, so everybody's sitting there looking like weird robotic humans, which is unsettling, and it's tiring. Like, I have a 2 video call limit a day.
Oh, good for you.
Because I hate it. I do it all the time. It's my primary form of communication, but I've also been doing remote work a long time, so I know that it's exhausting. And I think what I was hearing from my clients and the people that they were working with on their teams or even their clients is like, people who didn't used to use video call got real excited about video call and just scheduled video calls for everything. So then you had all your client meetings on video, all your internal meetings on video, all your happy hours and socializing on video, whether it's coworkers or friends and family. So by the end of the day, you could log 6 hours of camera time on a slow day, and that's exhausting. Like, that is a long time to have to manage yourself. I have to rig up a bunch of lights so I don't look like I just rolled out of bed, so then it's hot, and then I hate sitting still, so then I'm twitchy. Like, it's just bad. And then when you throw in, I think the other thing that got kind of lost as people started rolling out all these video calls is just the feeling of how intrusive it can be to, like, everybody's working from home. So there's that adjustment, whether you worked from home before or not, there's there's differences. Like I've worked from home a long time, but then my daughter was home for e-learning. So I wasn't always working with someone else in my house. So you figure in kids and pets and just the intrusiveness of having somebody in your house. Like maybe I don't want you in my house. No offense, you're both lovely, but like some people, you know, it brings up all sorts of anxiety and feelings, you know, socioeconomic differences maybe that you don't want coworkers or clients to know about. It's just intrusive and it puts you in a vulnerable position and it's tiring. So I have been beating the drum of like way less video meetings as opposed to more.
What
And
happened to the conference call?
right, I love phone
Straight
calls.
up conference call. It's okay because look, I'm not a morning person. Anyone who knows me knows that. I stay up late working, whatever. I stay up late and then I don't
Working,
like to get up
working.
early.
That was a good qualifier. Yeah, sure.
I have to get up early, which I do. I don't like it, right? I certainly am not going to get up and get all ready for a conference call, what should be a conference call. So now you get on a conference call and everyone goes, well, where are you? I can't see you. I'm like, yeah, it's called a phone, like on purpose.
You're like strategic.
Yeah, like
Strategic decision.
everything doesn't have to be a Zoom call. Hashtag.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Right. And I think people that have worked remotely for a while understood that. And I think it's the novelty for the people who didn't like utilize Zoom or maybe ever video calls or FaceTime. They were kind of underestimating the amount of management it takes to appear and appear well and to lead. It's really difficult. And Dave, you can talk to this as far as like leading, facilitating remotely. Like people who think you're going to translate a 4-hour session or a full day session into straight 4 or 8 hours on video, like hang it up. Like it is not happening. Your people are not paying attention. They are not listening to you. Like 90 minutes max on video before a nice long break, or your people are going to be turning their video off and like watching the Wendy show or something.
Who's
I don't
gonna
know.
mandolin?
I have to. We've been doing like 2 and 3 day classes on Zoom. So I have to hydrate immediately afterwards because
You
I love
might
it.
have a problem if you can
No,
reach an arm's length of your desk at work
I
to
share
a
it.
jug of alcohol.
I
That's
share
almost empty for those of you just
it.
listening and not watching.
Yeah.
That could be apple juice. You just both made assumptions.
Well,
But
you led us to that assumption, so we're just following the codes, my friend.
Good luck taking us both on, pal.
there's some, yeah, I know, I'm outnumbered. There's some good benefits leveraging technology we've learned, but yeah, facilitating it, of monitoring somebody's not on mute, their cat is meowing in the background, you got to create a breakout room, share your PowerPoint. You talk about filler words when you're presenting, and the filler word right now for me is, hang on, let me share my screen. Like every 30 seconds, I feel like I'm saying that over and over and over again.
Yeah,
So-
it's
Go
just
ahead,
a different way to manage yourself. And people who think it's like meeting in person only on video has far oversimplified the complexity and will, punish the people on the other side of their screen based on their lack of preparation. So that's what I'm spending a lot of my time on, is working with teams that are converting to virtual. How do you still interact with your client? How do you show up the way you need to digitally for the particular stakeholder on the other side of your screen? Because it's not a one size fits all kind of presentation or physical embodiment of yourself or the delivery of your material. It's different. You have to be a lot more intentional. You have to pay way more attention to what's happening on the other side of your face, because you aren't just kind of subconsciously picking up as many cues. You actually have to look harder because you have less to work with. So yeah, it's a whole layer of complexity that I think a lot of people underestimate.
Well, talking about picking up less clues, right? And this may go to a lot of different aspects in life these days. I always make a joke. It's probably not funny because they hear it a million times. When I'm in a store and I've got a mask on and I'm like,
he's shaking his head. He's like, no, it's not funny.
I'm like, you may not know, but I'm smiling to like the cashier because we all have masks on, right?
Yeah.
So is that a WZ branded mask?
You like
You
that?
guys are so cool.
I go fashion.
Ooh, I like the snake
Fancy.
skin.
Safety,
Mine's
but make
just like the
fashion.
hospital kind from China. I can't even tell you.
I ordered those and they got lost in transit. So I never.
Right. They were commandeered, probably. So tell us about reading behavior now, when you really, all you've got, I guess, is the whole other part of the body, the hands and the eyes and stuff. But how do you deal with that? You got masks on now.
Yeah, I think it's just acknowledging that most people are going to be slightly less aware. So there's going to be maybe less intentional management of what they're showing you, which can be good and bad, because you can either get like more realness because of less filtering, because people think you just aren't looking at them. It's like, kids that do hide and seek and hold the blanket up and then think you can't see them because they can't see you, right? It's kind of the same weird adult thing happening when people put masks on. It's like a cloak of invisibility, only it's not. So they totally don't manage anything, which can also be unsettling and awkward. But if you're trying to create an experience for somebody while wearing a mask, it's really like, what can you use and how can you maybe even overemphasize what you would do? So, you hear the term smiling with your eyes, right? A genuine smile activates the cheeks, activates the eyes, kind of gives you that little crinkle. Still smiling, still expressing, especially as you talk. See, Dave's gonna model. He's gonna smile for us. Ooh, Tyra.
Yeah, I think you're smiling. You're smiling. Don't smile.
He's probably got some contempt on over there too. Right, yeah. Little contempt hidden under that there, just for good measure. Yeah, it's just realizing what does activate on your face and being more intentional. So instead of just assuming you don't have to supply any emotionality or you don't have to show any expression, it's actually kind of showing more expression, activating the eyebrows, giving a little eyebrow raise up for acknowledgement of like a, hey, I see you, or hey, I know you. People kind of like, at least in the Midwest, right? Like there's this weird, because we haven't been so obvious in all of our stores to put like arrows, because people won't follow instructions anyway. So you do have two-way traffic in grocery aisles, but there's kind of like this, I'm going to hold my breath and like kind of turn sideways and try to like slide by you kind of thing that happens, which has become comical now if you just comment on it. Otherwise people just look like really suspicious. So it's one of those things, that compensating with the expressions that you can show, using things like hand gestures, nodding, your space and body positioning to either show openness or to show maybe that you're conceding space to someone who's passing that looks uncomfortable. Like it's just using your whole body to express instead of just your face, because our mouths are very expressive. But knowing that that's hidden, like we're working with half information, is what else can I use? What other tools can I use to communicate my intention and to be as clear as possible, even when half of my face is a mystery? I kind of dig it. It's kind of fun. But I like awkward stuff. So like for me, the more awkward, the happier I am.
Well, the awkward part is, like you walk past somebody in the grocery store and you don't use space, and you might give somebody that, like the smile, because you almost ran into each other, but you realize you're smiling. All they're seeing is you're staring them down for 3 seconds because they're not seeing it. So you miss that. I think the worst part for me, they need to figure out something to spray on here so that it smells better the rest of the day. Like I feel like after an hour.
Yeah, I have mints stashed everywhere just because I'm like, an avid coffee and tea drinker. So for me, mints are like my saving grace. But yeah, you get to know yourself really well.
That's the benefit of this, is that people who have had bad breath and not known it, now it's like it's a complete
karma.
Well, maybe they'll finally figure it out and fix it. Maybe
they'll probably still look around wondering where it's coming from, even though it's self-inflicted.
What about, so we've had a couple conversations with some LP executives that are going to be dealing with shoplifters, with organized crime, all these types of things. I think one of the other issues that store personnel and LP personnel are dealing with is actually somebody like Amber, who's refusing to get her temperature checked or refuses to wear a mask, but they go into...
I refuse to wear a mask, first of all.
She busted out the finger and the personal.
But this is a good lesson in interviewing. So I listed 2 things. She didn't deny the first one. She specifically...
Listen, I have an update on that, but go ahead.
So, okay, maybe not Amber, but somebody else with a potential attitude comes into your location and refuses to comply. And there's going to be an interaction, or you've got maybe even a customer who's outraged at product shortage. There's no more toilet paper or bottled water. And so we got a lot of associates, employees that are probably not used to dealing with conflict.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on how to handle some of those initial encounters?
Well, we'll caveat this with the beginning jump off of people are crazy, right? Like people are kind of mean, not everyone, but seems to be a heightened level of frustration and a lowered level of patience in most interactions right now. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm just observing. So I think it's one of those things, like I feel so bad for these younger, workers that are not necessarily experienced in the professional world or dealing with people outside of home and school that are now being accosted and confronted by every disenchanted, suburban housewife. And I'm using that stereotypical because I am a disenchanted suburban housewoman. But I'm aware of myself, I can be kind, right? So I think it's one of those things where just always leading with I understand, right? Like diffusing with compassion, diffusing with empathy, making sure the person feels heard and seen, even if you can't immediately fix their problem. That little moment of connectedness of, I understand why you're frustrated, or I know it must be frustrating for you to not be able to get what you need right now, or to continuously be restocked. Like that little moment of empathy out of the gate can kind of disarm somebody instead of going directly into either not taking ownership, making an excuse, being confrontational, like any of those things that just obliterate any opportunity for logic and peacefulness and calmness to remain. It's just leading with empathy. I understand, right? Just a simple, hey, I understand. It's frustrating. And then partnership, I'm in it too. I would love to be able to give you exactly what you want right now, right? So partnership, empathy, all of those keys that kind of just remind people that, hey, I see you as a human. There's a human on the other side of your face, right? Like we're all kind of in this together. It might not satisfy, but hopefully at least it de-escalates enough where you can have a logical kind of conversation as far as details of what's next or where else they might look, or hey, I'm really sorry, we got our truck comes in on Tuesday, some side of insider tip that you're trying to be helpful, or partner, give them some sort of advantage if they're feeling like something's not fair. So there's lots of ways you can at least kind of keep people in that neutral zone as opposed to escalating or going into atomic. But I mean, some people are just awful and looking for somebody to beat up. I mean, that's just the truth of it. Like,
Don't talk to that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is it a guy? Why is it got to be a guy?
He's
Um,
feeling ornery today, Lisa. I don't know if there's trouble at home or what, but you're like right on it with the man-woman thing. We should have another he said, she said.
I'm just preemptively defensive because I know how this goes.
Look,
he knows who else is on. He's just expecting one of us is going to zing him. So he's
that's right.
So
Yeah,
Amber,
that's our side high five, wherever you are. But so I'm curious because I heard this a lot, and this is a question to both of you. Is in the LP space, we're hearing and even articles about it in the news that is talking about shoplifters, maybe the employee that has made a mistake and is probably going to be caught, like are doing this whole coughing, fake coughing. I have it. Like, is there anything to do with that? If you're about to approach a shoplifter, maybe, hey, let's come talk about it, that whole thing. Like, what do you even do with that? Someone's trying to fake cough in your face. Is there an answer?
I mean, is there a podcast acceptable answer, or is there the
We're
Lisa,
unscripted, Lisa. You say whatever you want.
Lisa on the street answer is like, you're getting punched, right?
Yeah.
That's assault, and I'll defend myself, right? Like that's as just a citizen. Would I put that in the employee handbook? Probably not, right? So there could be some unintended consequences there. So I don't know. I'm going to defer to Dave on this one because I feel like I'm working from a spot of like defensiveness automatically, like you're threatening my safety and what I might bring home to my daughter and to the people that I love. And I've been super careful wearing a mask everywhere, even when most people aren't now in my community, because my parents do have every you know, pre-existing condition known to man, and I want them to stay alive. So for me, I would take that act of aggression as exactly that, right? As harm, as an offense, as something that would be to whatever extent can be punishable. Like, I would run it up as far as I could, because that's a very personal attack to me. Some people may not be that. I don't think anyone would welcome it, but some people might just be more annoyed versus
Yeah.
as enraged as I would be. So I don't know, Dave, what would you do? What would you do with that?
Well, I think your first response makes sense. Like there's a difference between what I personally want to do, but versus what I'd be willing to be deposed on what I'm stating. But no, I think like when you talk specifically about LP, I mean, you got to think about what their goal, what's their whole purpose, and protecting the safety of the customers and the product and themselves. So anything like this, as crazy as it is, it's a lot easier and safer to just let them go, and you can deal with it later. I mean, to me, it's the same thing as shoplifters that pose a safety risk because they've got a knife in their pocket or they're known to carry a weapon or whatever it might be. There's really no good outcome, I don't think, for a private sector employee. So like a loss prevention person to go hands-on or go into some type of physical confrontation with somebody who's already escalated. I think the safest thing to do is let them go, because what in our experience, what I think the industry has seen is they're going to be back, and you file a report afterwards. And with all the technology we have, you could probably do an investigation and not have to put you or your team in that position again. So, that's one thing at the apprehension. What I've seen a lot now are people in stores, not a lot, that's not fair. I've seen a few videos of people, whatever, Amber, like you suggested, coughing or sneezing, or I saw some video of some guy licking product like down in an aisle. I mean, crazy stuff. And now you're looking at, how does this impact the safety of every customer that comes in? So, working with law enforcement if you have to escalate it. But yeah, the right thing to do and what you want to do sometimes don't correlate with each other.
Well, what's crazy is there's technology that can help when you think about it, right? So like if you're a retailer that uses carts, they have the technology there where if you're trying to push out and you don't go through a checkout legitimately and you're pushing out the door, that the wheel locks and stops, right? So that's like, hey, I don't even have to interact with that person, because with all the stuff they're trying to push out, the cart just stops. So, that's gatekeeper systems technology does that. I actually saw a video of recent events where someone was trying to push a huge cartload out and it just completely stopped. They just left it. Everybody just left. And so it's like there's that technology. There's other technology out there that, you can use that to your advantage to help keep the distance, it seems. But yeah, I mean, what a crazy world. You think about years ago when you would see videos of China and other places where mask wearing is just not so weird. And you're like, man, that's weird. They're wearing masks over there. Now it's us. It's just unbelievable what's going on. But yeah, I mean, the behavior thing, I think, is just so fascinating, especially when you're at a restaurant now and you're like, they're telling you the specials and I have no idea what they said. I'll turn to my husband and be like, what is it? He's like, I don't know. I couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, I think one of the weirdest feelings was when the first time I wore a mask into the grocery store. Like, it was really early on, and I had, nobody had really been out much, but I had to do an essentials run, and it was sitting in the parking lot, and it was like, am I really gonna wear a mask to? Am I really gonna wear a mask to go to the grocery store? Like, it was the weirdest thing, and it's like fundamentally, yes, it's safe, but it's just that anxiousness and that discomfort of doing something different. And then there's like the judgment thing. It's like, oh, well, first we judged everybody for wearing masks, and now we judge everybody for not wearing masks.
I was one. I was like, what do you, masks don't help? Because I actually believe the government.
Well,
and now we're like, retract, it does, it doesn't, it does. Terrible.
Well, and when again, it's like the misinformation, and I think maybe just even, I don't know that there was malice behind a lot of it. It was just not knowing, right?
Right.
Lots of fear-driven decision making, and so everyone, like the same neighbors you would stop and talk to, are now like suspect number one in the produce aisle. Like it's just weird. Like people feel like, oh, I have a mask on, I can't talk. It's like, well, no, actually, you have a mask on, so you can't talk. Like that's kind of the whole point. but it's just like having tons of patience and just getting over yourself, and to not feel weird or not feel conspicuous. And whatever you decide and whatever the people around you decide, it's like keeping your boundaries for safety, being super gracious towards everybody else's threshold. Everybody's got situations that you don't know about and reasons why they are or aren't doing certain things, whether it's ideological or health or otherwise. And just, you know, getting out, doing what you need to do, and being kind while you're at it. That really is like the best prescription for everything right now, because there's no right way to do this. Like, this is some weird stuff, right? Like,
Yeah, totally.
that's weird.
So I got one last question for you, and then I'm going to kick it to Dave for his final question. So just from a helpful perspective, we talked a little bit about the nightmare that Zoom calls are, but if you had like your top tips for people to appear on Zoom and, you know, look with it and engage and interacted, like what are your tips for people that are just zoomed out? They're really just trying to stay with it here, coming into the home stretch, hopefully. What would you say your tips are for people on these Zoom calls?
Yeah, I think the first is more verbal than nonverbal, and that's just like upfront contracting people. If it's your 5th Zoom call of the day and you're feeling it, just say it. Hey, like, this is number 5. I'm kind of beat, right? Like, I might not express as much energy as I'm actually feeling about your idea. It's me, not you, right? Or if there's something weird in your background, or one of your kids is going to come in, like something that you are distracted by in your head, just say it out loud. Upfront contract it. People are being super gracious about it. It's like, hey, I'm human, you're human. We're going to just, stuff is weird. We're going to just do the best we can. Just kind of giving permission for life to happen during your Zoom call, I think, is really helpful, and just setting the right tone of like, hey, like, we're just going to roll with it. A couple years ago, the guy's kid coming in during a CNN or news clip was like the biggest, like such a to-do of just unprofessionalism and whatever.
Yeah.
Oh God, life showed up on a Zoom. Who cares, right? Like, now it's like everybody's like, we just expect things to go sideways. So just be a human, acknowledge what you're walking into. And I think, knowing your boundaries, like if you need to not schedule Zoom calls or say, hey, I'm not going to be on video for this, then just be candid about that. Make sure that they know what to expect, so people don't, if you don't tell people what to expect, then they assign a negative quality to it if something different happens than what they would have just defaulted to. So anything that's different or unexpected, just upfront contract it. When you are on video, close out of distractions. Put your phone on mute, set it aside. I have a window right in front of me, so I'm always seeing who's fishing on my pond. Like, I'm always like, just creeping from afar, because that's what I like to do. But I will, like, if I really need to be zoomed in and focused, I'll close the blinds, right? And good lighting is a saving grace. It fixes almost everything. So if you can rig up a ring light or two.
So there's a good concealer.
Right, good concealers, good ring lights. I have like 17 different lights, maybe, plus a window. So I'm throwing all the Hail Marys today because I'm tired, and it's showing. So you get what you get, right? So yeah, good lighting, upfront contracts, knowing your boundaries, not feeling obligated to do more than is comfortable for you to do.
The upfront contract piece, I like. That's good feedback. I have a rule for the classes we're teaching that if your dog comes on the screen, we stop and you have to introduce the dog to the rest of the group. If a cat comes on the screen, I just kick him off the class because he's weird cat people. But no, I like that. It's trying to make it more normal. We've had a lot of even people that are apprehensive to be on because they've got childcare and they have their kids, and so up front in the beginning of the class, letting people know that we don't care. We're all living our life as we're going through. I think that's good feedback. All right, so I have one more question. Is that what I was entitled to, Amber Queen? I think that's what you said.
I'm telling you, we got some issues we got to work out, Lisa.
No, I'm just making sure.
Everybody's sensitive today. Okay.
Just making sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Please proceed.
I know, Lisa, you do a lot of executive coaching and working with entrepreneurs and a whole bunch of different businesses, some of the sports leagues and officials, and a lot of really neat stuff. So I'm sure everybody has been scrambling the last few months between communicating to their team and then trying to get back to the workspace. Any like maybe global common denominators you've seen on what their focuses have been the last few weeks as businesses are getting back to normal?
Yeah, I think it's been targeting the right message to the right stakeholders. and not making assumptions. So for clients that are having, whether it's lots of moving parts and operations, or how they're interacting with their clients further downstream, getting everybody together, charting the course, just leadership. It's an opportunity for leadership to really anchor in and create that form. And it's not every day. Like some people were trying to do like everyday stand-ups or whatever, and they never had before. So then it became a punishment to work from home in an attempt to stay connected. So it's getting feedback from your team, figuring out what the cadence is where people feel connected but don't feel overwhelmed, and being available again, whether it's picking up a phone or using your Slack channel or text. It doesn't always have to be a Zoom call. So being really careful about filtering the right type of connection and for what you're trying to accomplish, so it doesn't feel again like a burden or overwhelming. It's just effective. Everything, it's effectiveness and clarity should be your goal with everything. And so it's knowing what your stakeholder needs, getting feedback from them on what makes them feel most engaged but not overwhelmed, and then picking the right tool to make that connection.
Now that's good feedback. So thank you so much for being a guest today. We will definitely have you back as the situation evolves. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll have to talk about hazmat suits.
Can I get a fancy backdrop like Dave?
Yeah.
I'll send
How
you
do
one.
you communicate in a hazmat suit? That might be our next conversation. I don't know, but we'll certainly have you back. We really appreciate it. So thanks for listening. Talk LP podcast. Follow us at Let's Talk LP. Don't forget, you can always submit your questions for Lisa next time we have her on, or your topics or anything. Hit us up. We have a new LinkedIn group. Follow us on LinkedIn. I know we're all over the place. What's up now? So thanks everybody for listening. We will talk at you later.